All right, welcome to Double Barrel Non-Duality number, I don't know, 11, 12, something like that. Been doing it for a while now. Every month we host a different guest that will kind of help or bounce questions back and forth between us when people ask questions about non-duality, awakening, whatever's going on with you. And this month we have Viivi. Hello.
Hi,
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Okay. So we will get started because we always have a lot of questions. We usually have just about enough time. So everyone, please keep yourself muted unless you're asking questions, because it helps the recording look right. So when you put your hand up, which you do by going down to reactions at the bottom of the screen, and you click on the little hand, yep, your hand will go up, and then I'll call on you. Once I call on you, feel free to unmute yourself, and then you can ask whatever question you have, or you can check out your experience with us if that's what you want to do, whatever. So let's get rolling. We're going to start with Maggie.
Hi, thank you. Something that's come up recently is, and it's come up before, and I just kind of like, I don't know, I just let it go. But it just there, almost everything in my life, unless it's a diversion, is it seems like it's just all of it is serving the sense of a separate self, the made up one, and its needs and its desires, and the especially the desire for attention and approval. And so it just feels like a conundrum, that it's like, well, what does that mean? So what do I do then? Do I do those things, or do I do them from the standpoint of like, oh, okay, I kind of know where this is coming? Because they're not necessarily terrible things, like taking care of my health, and working, I'm getting older, increase my strength, all that kind of stuff. But there's a sense of it's like, yeah, I want to be respectful of this thing that exists here, right? This body that is here. But I also see that there's a sense of like, well, look at me, look at what I did, or and there's also a sense of my wanting to play a part in the world, like in a certain way, this dream that's kind of needed, it could help. So there's that sense of that. Anyway, so I'm sure it's not a new question, but you just
Well, every question's a new question to me, so I always start from zero.
Okay. Okay.
So the thing I'm inclined to say, and then I'll let Viivi give her impression, but what I'm inclined to say is, most of what you described are kind of like the reflections of the reflections on experience. So what that means is when you're eating, if you sit down to eat, what's actually really happening there? Like that's what I would encourage you to really dive into, feel into, melt into, die into. The sounds, the sensations, the sensation of the food on your tongue, the flavors. Where are those flavors? Do they exist in time or space? Do they exist here? Do they exist everywhere? Do they have any story, any narrative? Do they reference anything like a self or an other or a world or a no world? Or is it just flavor? Just what you taste? Yeah. So the let's say the act of eating is completely pure act. There is nothing there that suggests a separate self or even an activity. Actually, it's just the sense fields that are just vibrantly alive right then. That's it. Non-dualistically, meaning not over there with someone over here. It's full on immersion. That's what's actually happening. And then consciousness tries to sort of reflect that. There's one way of speaking. And the first thing it might say is, oh, you're eating, so you must be self-centered or something like that, right? And then another thought says, well, but I have to eat because I have to stay alive, and then I may do good things for the world. That back and forth, that volleying of thought, that's just the nature of thought. It's just something trying to reflect something that can't be reflected. It's thought trying to reflect that which there's no way to reflect. You can't actually reflect on non-dual experience. So the reflections are always going to be distorted, and the distortion will feel like doubt, right? Self-doubt or doubt about the process, or distraction, like, oh, I need to think about this some more. And then often there's a polarity to that. There's a bounce into another view, right? Like there's a response to those thoughts. But this is all up here, right? In a sense, it's not actually the taste of that food. It has nothing to do with it. So what I point to is just very simple, very direct, and always right here. And the more you trust that, the more you let that overtake your experience moment to moment, the more you'll realize, like, there is actually no storyline that makes any sense anymore. There's no storyline about being a good person or bad person that actually makes sense. There's no storyline about being more or less awake that actually makes sense. The only thing that makes sense is more immersion. The only thing that makes sense is surrender, which is already here. It's already happening all the time. So the more you trust present experience, meaning nothing conceptual, nothing spiritual even, the more that this natural unbinding process we talk about will just unfold. And the more that unfolds, the less interesting all of those thoughts will be about, am I a good person, a bad person? Am I getting better? Am I getting more compassionate? Am I doing good for the world or not? That will just dissipate, and you'll realize none of that was ever driving the ship anyway. None of that was ever making you do anything. It was just background noise. And that background noise goes away, and you find out, wow, everything just happened on its own anyway. And it always has. That's my direct, simple answer.
But before I get Viivi's answer, I want to, it's more like the thing of, I do a lot of planning along those lines in a way that there was a time when I didn't. And then I would go through periods of time where I did, and it felt like it paid off. It felt useful, but it also feels a little bit like it's involved. Like there's a sense of doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And yet in a certain way, I don't want to give that up. I mean, like, I don't want to let it be free fall, because I think that there are repercussions from that. Does that, you understand? It's like, because
I get it.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you say, I don't want it to be free fall, I don't want to fully let go yet, that's okay. That's just honest. That's just honest. But at some point you may realize even that really is just a thought that's sort of being grasped onto. The free fall, it turns out to be okay. And when the free fall is noticed ongoing, what you realize is what I said is, like, all of the thinking and strategizing and agendas, all the stuff that seemed to be happening for so long and seemed to pay off sometimes, and actually seemed to not pay off other times, seemed to sabotage you other times, keep you awake at night, all of that was not actually what's causing this to be what it is, because this is uncaused. It's spontaneous here, just this. There's nothing. It's so simple, so simple. So what I would say is, trust your instincts. And if something says, I'm a little afraid to let go, or I don't want to let go, you can kind of inquire a little bit. Is there an emotion there? Is there something that's a little bit fearful? Maybe not. And is it true that being in my mind, spending a lot of time thinking about past and future, planning, doing good deeds, trying not to do bad deeds, is there a possibility that that's not what it appears to be? That maybe there are times when that actually, the repercussions of that are really uncomfortable, like overthinking, when you can't stop the mind, when it keeps you awake, when it, feels like anxiety, when there's a lot of doubt in it, So a lot of people see that, may or may not be this way to you, but a lot of people at some point see that all the sense of control and doership and planning that seems to come to fruition, it's kind of a selective way of remembering, and thoughts will remember selectively which thoughts come to fruition and which don't. Because also there are many times when we think this is going to happen and it doesn't. And that feels like disappointment, feels like loss of control, feels like frustration. That's good shadow work, actually. But to see the whole truth of thought and consciousness, that ultimately these reflections are by nature inaccurate. And this is not just Angelo speaking. This goes all the way back to the suttas. Buddha said it literally, like, consciousness by nature, the reflection of consciousness is distorting in nature. And it is. It can be a little distorting. It can be a little distorting, and it can be a lot distorting. Like creating mass violence in the world by groups of people, or even an individual leading groups of people. Like, that's a massive distortion in consciousness, but there are minor distortions all the time. And you can see that, you can see it in your own experience and find what's the most peaceful presence when there's like no reflection, essentially, or not a lot of thought, or not a lot of struggle with thought or buying into thought, or when we feel like there's a lot of buy-in to thought. Just keep testing that and seeing which is more true for you, and only you can answer that question. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think Viivi may have something to say.
Yeah, I can say a few things that came up for me. Just to add something like yeah, I would definitely agree that like that type of like looking back into the experience all the time, like that's kind of what the self is, that is made out of those kind of thoughts that all the time wants to look back and understand and like analyze the experience like that. And everything that Angelo pointed, like just realizing that they are just thoughts and bringing the attention back to the immediate sense experience, it's going to all the time diminish that activity of the looking back inwards, that thought activity, so that it can spontaneously just cease more and more. So, and I think that's what we all want, because it's a very heavy experience to have that constantly going on, that self-reflection, true thinking. And yeah, regarding what was your name?
Maggie?
Maggie, okay.
Yeah, if you're looking at the whole screen, okay.
Yeah, I lost your face. Yeah, I want to just know who I'm talking to. So yeah, you talked about this right and wrong, and this kind of, at least what I heard, that like this fear that if this self-reflective activity doesn't happen anymore, then there wouldn't be the similar kind of sense of right and wrong, and what would happen then? Like, how would you navigate through experience, or is it something like that? Is there like a concern?
Well, okay, let me just maybe if I make it particular, I used to compulsively overeat, and it felt like I took control. I asserted some will and changed those practices. And now I'm older and I'm doing some things with how I eat, but there are influences that are saying you don't need to plan it. You can just trust. And I did not find that was true with my body, that it often wanted things that later it felt like that was a mistake. And so there's the sense of like, am I wrong to want to, I want to plan it, because I haven't found that the organism, especially as I've gotten older, doesn't give me the kind of feedback that I feel like I can trust. So that there's a sense, it's like, well, you're not trusting enough, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the things, that's one of the areas that's there right now. So I don't know if that helps or hinders to bring it up, but it.
Yeah, I think it's it takes some practice to kind of differentiate the voice of the intuition and the voice of kind of like conditioned patterns that are operating in the system. But I think it's a great practice to just like attune with that, and because there is a difference, like the intuition, the voice, the instinct, it's coming somewhere deeper, and it always has this quality of that it's wordless, and it's like a gentle pull, towards what feels like the way to go. And sometimes those deeper patterns that are still operating in the system, they can feel like intuition, because it also feels like it's coming from somewhere really deep and it's trying to pull us to certain direction. But there's a like different kind of like stickiness to the pull. Like we really feel compelled in a different type of way than with intuition. It's more gentle. It's more soft. So I would just like play with like to recognizing those two different responses in the body, like how it feels like, how does the voice of intuition feel like, and how does the voice of like a old pattern I don't know how else to call it. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I'll have to let it listen back and settle, you know. I'm not sure how it applies. I just lost my earplugs, so sorry.
Maggie, I'll second what she said. And I think I slightly misheard what you said, honestly. And it's not your fault.
Okay.
I think it's mine.
Yeah.
When it comes to simple planning of things, I'm not saying you should never plan something. Planning is like when it's the same as when you're eating, say you're eating dinner, breakfast, like I described earlier. Planning is the same thing. Fingers move on the keyboard, you know, click, 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 1, 2, 3, words are made. The plan is made. It's over. It's done. It's the reflection in the mind that often stirs the pot and makes us feel, question ourselves, doubt ourselves, etc. The more present you get, I'm going to connect what I said with what Viivi said. So the more present you get, so to speak, the more in the moment without a lot of background reflection, a lot of thought, a lot of distraction, the more you are actually in the sense fields and in the body, the more you will understand this intuition. The intuition is beyond the conceptual mind. It's very subtle, but it's where the conventional you aligns with no self, with the ineffable truth that I can't put into words. That's all of this. And there's an alignment there. There's just a place where you just know what to do. I know what to say. I know what this word needs to come out of my mouth without pre-thinking it all the time. This is how I function. This is how I move. This is the body doing what it does. There's no pre-thinking. This is intuition. And this intuition will know sometimes to make a plan. That's it. It's that simple. It's that simple. But if we get in our head about, well, should I have made a plan? Shouldn't I have? That's kind of what I was saying to you at the beginning, that's the doubt. The doubt comes in and goes, well, you shouldn't have to make a plan, but why? That's just thought. That's just echoes of the mind. If there's a plan to make the plan, and that's it. Move on. Move into presence, deeper into presence. Watch what happens. It will just continue to unfold. It will just continue to unfold. And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper into itself. Yeah. So your intuition is good.
Okay,
your intuition is good. Yeah. And we have a complex enough nervous system to make plans, and that's fine.
Okay.
It just doesn't require, it requires less than 1% of the thought most people think it does. That's all I'll say.
Okay. I'll have to, like I said, I'll have to let that settle a bit. Thanks so much.
It's a really good question. A lot of people are asking those sorts of questions. Okay, let's move on to Arnaud.
Hello, Angelo.
Hi.
Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to see you.
I have a question for you. I am kind of eating the same wall repeatedly, and I would like to check with you if the way I am trying to deal with it is a right one, or if you have something else to suggest. So basically, my daily experience is still in varying level of everything is me, but varying level of intensity. It's rarely full on. So what I have been doing for the past few weeks has been to either self-inquiry, or I think what you call a kind of more deep, laser-focused "who am I" approach. And the issue, or the wall I am eating, is now each time I do this successfully, I start to have this feeling of losing my center, dissolving. But 100% of the time, each time this starts, I have a fear, an extremely strong fear reaction that comes on my body. I often kind of jerking movement, which brings me out of it. So what I have been trying to do for the past few weeks has been trying to do what they do with phobia, kind of a gradual exposure. So I am trying to not go too fast, try to stay just before I have this jerking reaction. And this is basically what I am doing. So do you think it's the right thing to do, or would you have another suggestion for me?
Viivi, you want to start or you want me to start?
Yeah, I can start.
Or not, if you say hi, she'll see your face instead of mine.
Okay, yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hi, good to
Viivi.
see you. Yeah, thanks
Nice
for
to
the
meet you.
share. Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, okay, it's really simple what comes up for me. Like I would just relax into it and just focus on natural relaxation and not trying to make anything happen, just allowing it kind of unwind and unravel as it does by its own. Like the energy knows how to unwind itself. And so if any kind of spontaneous movement reaction comes to it, just relax into that. And yeah, it's simple.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, what you're describing is you're kind of right there in a sense. I might say you're like at the edge of something or whatever, but there's no need to make a big story about it. The fear responses are reasonably normal. They tend to come at this stage for people, and it can be that very much like a visceral jerking. It can just be like the body feeling a lot of fear suddenly. But it will totally unwind itself, and you really can just relax into it to the degree it's possible. But knowing that it's not going to stay that intense forever, because it won't, is helpful. In my own experience, I remember feeling a very intense fear when I felt something just dropping, and then I like backed away from it, or it seemed like I did. And then later on, I had an intuition that if that happened again, I wouldn't. I just knew, like, no, next time I'm just going to step off, and it just happened. So that's my experience. It happens differently with everyone. The other thing you can do, if this continues to like feel like it's a fixation or whatever, is when you feel that starting, maybe before you even feel like the jerk starting, just notice the thoughts that are coming. Is there one thought that's really triggering that? Like one thought that says, oh, I'm going to let go right now, or, oh, here it comes. And then if you notice the thought, just kind of ask yourself, all right, well, what if I just notice that thought and just let it go, and just stay right here with what's happening, with whatever is, and just notice any thoughts that are just starting. Because sometimes what happens is that it's almost like the thought sneaks up on you, and it feels like it surprises you, grabs you and jolts you. But if you do what you're already doing, stay with that presence, because you're obviously just already sort of dissolving into it, and it's all already unraveling. As that's happening, you can also just keep some attention attuned to any arising thoughts. Just noticing the thought space as things arise. And if something starts to solidify experience, just notice, oh, that's a thought. Oh, the fear is coming. That's a thought. The fear is here. Oh, that's another thought. And if the body starts to feel something, that's okay. Just notice the thoughts about it are very, very different than the actual sensations. The sensations are just what they are, and you have a capacity for those. And yeah, that's it. This will unravel itself. It will do what it needs to do. It's a very natural process, and you're along for the ride. Your heart's in it, and that's obvious, and that's what really matters.
Actually, now that you are saying it, there is actually a thought which is the same thought, but it's the thought that comes each time is, oh no, the next jerking movement is coming soon. I am actually now practically expecting them to come, and the thought comes before it does. Yeah, indeed.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can even start with that thought. When you sit and you start to feel this more relaxed, you can just say, okay, I'm going to bring the thought up already that says, okay, the next movement's coming. Just start with the thought. Just get used to the thought itself. Let it be there. The next movement's coming. Here I am. I'm already ready for it, because the thought's here. That's, what we react to without realizing it is thought. We don't actually react to the external environment nearly as much as we think we do. We react to thoughts about what the external environment is going to do, especially like when we're interacting with people and so forth. We certainly can react to an external thing that happens, but much of the time we're actually reacting to thoughts. So start by just touching that thought, letting it be there, starting there and just going, that thought's okay. It can be here. And then just relax into things, see what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're doing fine. You're doing great.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would still add just a little thing. And I think that when the center just suddenly dissolves, the mind will react to it with all this thought activity. So just recognizing that that's what's happening and it's totally normal. It's the normal reaction of the mind to something that it doesn't understand. But then when that it relaxes into that experience where there is no center, it's totally comfortable. It's very stable actually. But it can initially feel like very like destabilizing.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's very true. Okay, let's go to Bob.
Angelo, hey, Viivi.
Hey, Bob.
My question's in the realm of where to put attention with regard to being judgy. Now, when I'm home, or actually I guess at work too, it's like it's more focused back at me. It's like I should paint the wall where the water damage is, or I should. And then as soon as I step outside into my neighborhood to walk the dog, it's like all of a sudden it's like goes outwards. It's like, oh, look, they didn't do whatever with the leaves, or the leaves are in the street. The city should pick them. It's just like nonstop, boom, boom, boom. And that's like quiet for a bit. And it's like, oh, yeah, that. And that's like, well, I shouldn't think this way. I should, I guess, which gets back to the shouldn'ts that I shouldn't be doing or I should be doing. Where should awareness be put or attention put, I guess is the question, to drill into that, if anywhere?
That's a great question. I think it's actually a very, very common phenomenon that I think maybe a lot of people don't think to ask about. It's very common. And I like how you connected self-judgment with outward judgment. They're quite connected, When I'm interacting with somebody who's very judgmental in whatever way, like I just feel compassion for them because I know they have a lot of self-judgment too, in there, especially if they're outwardly judgmental, not just in the mind, but like that's like how they connect with people is in a very oppositional way. I really feel for people. And I also know that's just how they are conditioned, maybe the way they were brought up. It can be a lot of different things, but something about the way we get conditioned. And I've been through it. Like I used to have a lot of that when I was much younger. At some point it becomes just thoughts, and you're not, I would distinguish between action. Like, do you act on judgment? Meaning, are you saying judgmental things to people? Are you, giving people dirty looks? Are you cutting people off in traffic? Whatever the things are that are like outwardly reactive, that's one level. Now, if you've dealt with that, that's really good. Then you start to notice, oh my gosh, there's actually a lot just going on in here. A lot of like, looking at someone and judging them, or the thought is judging them. At that level, it's a little different because it's like, what you really have to see is like, that is not you. It's conditioned. It's a conditioned response. You're not actually choosing those thoughts. You're not choosing them. And also I think relating the inward judgment and the outward judgment like you're doing is actually really good. Because when you kind of see like, oh man, I'm a little harsh on myself in a sense, right? And that makes me a little harsh outwardly. Then you can kind of start having a little more self-compassion, I think. But at the same time, it's important to see that really those are still just thoughts ultimately, that there's not, because what we can do is beat ourselves up for being the judgmental one. And that's not helpful either. It's really just a thought pattern ultimately at that level, and the other thing you can ask yourself when there's a lot of it going on, for instance, sometimes it's a distraction. So we use identity sometimes as a distraction. So the distraction could be from something you're feeling, but not noticing, like an emotion, a very simple emotion. Sometimes you can ask yourself like, what might I be feeling right now? Did something happen in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour that made me feel something that I didn't want to feel? And I went into the uncomfortable but familiar mode of judgment. And it may be like disappointment, frustration, impatience. These are really common ones. People feel these all the time. So look into those. Could be something else, could be sadness, could be grief, could be anger, and usually you'll find the story that it's connected to, something that happened in the last little while. So sometimes it is an emotion actually underneath it. And if you get into the habit of just asking yourself, what am I feeling? That can really start to break the spell of what I might just call compulsive judgmental thoughts. It's hard to know how frequent they are with any given person. I mean, there's so many thoughts flying through these heads, but if it's really distracting and there's a lot of judgment, it feels like there's some polarity there or something to address. Often there's an emotion somewhere underneath. And the more you start to get in touch with those emotions and catch them earlier, the less that the mind will just naturally go to that coping mechanism of judgmental thoughts. It could go to other kinds of thoughts, but those are the ones you're describing. For someone else, it may be daydream thoughts. It may be yearning thoughts, fantasy. It can be all kinds of things. So the mind can use that as a mechanism of distraction. So those are the suggestions I would make.
Okay.
Yeah. Viivi?
Yeah, I think that was all great, and it really depends on the situation and on the person. Like if it's just general judgmental thoughts, yeah, it's just recognizing that it's just a conditioned mind arising and subsiding and not giving it too much attention.
Okay.
But if it's like a very specific judgment and situation, like a very clear fixation, then I would like investigate it more, because then there's usually underneath like a lot of unresolved experience and emotion. But if it's just general, one thing that I think can be really beneficial is just to contemplate how spontaneous everything is, like in our own experience, because really getting a kind of direct taste of that, then it becomes more and more obvious that nothing could really happen in any other way that it's happening, like for us and for everyone else as well. So there is no other possible reality that could be happening like ever. So, and we are all the time doing our best at this human level. So really recognizing that that's just the nature of our experience, that there is not that type of free will in it. It can also, I think, be useful.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good question. All right. Let's go to Leah.
Hey,
Hello.
actually, you'll have to forgive me because my timing is terrible, and I wanted to just speak because I have a major phobia of public speaking, but
Yay.
I know, in 4 minutes I have to hop on a Zoom for 10 minutes, so it just like didn't
Oh,
work
come on
out.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. I'll look for your hand. Even if you're down the list, I'll get you back. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. See you in a bit. Let's see. Joanna's iPad.
Oh no, sorry.
There you are. Hello.
Oh, hello. I'm speechless because the other girl said that she just wanted to maybe share the space,
Hmm.
and I have no questions.
Perfect.
I think that's my way of my heartbeat.
Hmm.
I think I just wanted to share the space as well. I don't have
Hmm.
really questions too much.
That's-
As always, I don't know,
Mhm.
and I don't know what to ask for.
I don't know either.
But if you don't mind,
This is my favorite language. There's a fly visiting.
It's like silly question. Where am I at?
Mhm.
No point.
It's nice not to have any questions.
Probably there is many of them, but the only answer is just this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, there is a self-judgment. I'm taking the time and someone else could ask the question.
Yeah. You're taking less time than I'll give you the amount of time anybody else gets. You know, I communicate with I'll say it this way. People communicate with me primarily through how they move. I pick up so much from just the way people move more than their words.
And maybe you can tell me.
Oh, you look at peace to me. You look like you trust your intuition utterly, which is really good.
Just here, it's like, oh, the body is crazy at the
Yeah.
moment. Hard, but it's
Yeah.
the body.
Yeah, exactly. The energetics of this are big, I would say. You know, compared to the thoughts seem so loud and there's so much content in mind, but I think a lot of that is actually there in one sense to distract from when you drop into the energetic body, into the energetics of this, it's a whole different order of experience.
It's like both the peace and the body. I don't know how to describe it. I feel peaceful, and at the same time I can observe heartbeat.
Viivi, you have anything? Any silence for us?
No, I'm just loving this. It's generates so much just this warmth in this meeting that we just had this moment of silence. So thank you for initiating it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Oh, it's great.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, come back and see us.
I will. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hugs from wherever I am to wherever you are.
I'm in UK. I come from Poland, but I'm in UK.
Oh, okay.
And thank you for Matt Garrett. I had a few conversations with him maybe a year ago, and I think that they've helped me a
Good.
lot. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Okay. Andres.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good. I've been following you for a while, Angelo. I'm really grateful of all you share, and I'm really grateful for the productivity that you have. You are really creating some content that's really useful for me.
Good.
So I've been a seeker. You can see I've been a seeker for a long time, and I've been listening to Ajay Shanti and Rupert Spira and I'm trying to focus on what you are teaching at the moment, and there's it's good to get some content to. For me, it has been helpful and not so helpful to have some understanding. But what I'm trying to see now is that awakening is not something that I will ever find outside myself. And so seeking has often been looking for somebody else's experience. And simply by watching and looking at my own experience, for example, the judgment. Several years ago, I found out that judgment happened automatically in my life. It was just thoughts that were repetitive, and they were repetitive because I also judged those thoughts, and then I judged. It was circular, and it seems to me that it's also something that you call fixation. And something that I find, it's like almost the mind always tries to create a position. I call it position. It's like my mind, when I sit there and I lose all position and only silence is left, it seems like the mind is always trying to recreate a position in several ways. And that's why I found it very helpful to see that instead of trying, because trying is a filter. It's just look, just listen, just feel. And there's no certain way that things have to be. And then I have had some of those experiences that you also talk about zero distance. And here with me, it feels like when I look at something and when I listen to something, that's something, it can be far away, but it's here at the same time. Mm-hmm. And there's no division between it, and it's completely natural. So I can feel what I look at, and I can feel what I listen to on a deeper level, if you can see that. And I move in and out of that. But when I pay attention, it's here, and it's always here. And then the question comes then, how can you, almost feels like you can't know that you have awakened, or how could you know? Because this feels like you turn every stone and you found out, I don't know anything. So you see some pattern, and when you've seen it enough times, the pattern kind of like disappears, and you don't believe that anymore. And it feels like this is a process of turning every stone in your life until, yeah, you're probably never done, but how, my question is, how do you know when you're awakened?
So 95% of what you said to me sounds very good. Like you're very, like your heart is attuned the right way. Your attention, your noticing of anything that's arising, anything that's happening, is pretty clear, it sounds like. And you're even having non-dual experiences. All of that is very clear to me. The concern about waiting for something called awakening, or when there's an awakening, or how to label my experience as awakening or not awakening. I know this is like the last thing you want to hear, but I would say just forget about it. You don't need to worry about that at this level for you. You know, maybe I would say it this way: how much work you've already done. Maybe it happened. Maybe you did have a shift back in identity. I've talked to people where it happened 5 years ago, and they didn't overlook it at the time, but in retrospect, it's kind of hard for them to put that together. And then when I talk to them, it's obvious, but it doesn't really matter, because the work you've done so far, you've been at this for a while. Like I said, your heart is very oriented to it. Your attention, your effort is here, and that's great. The process has a momentum to it. It's already going. It's already the unbinding process is happening. You couldn't stop it if you wanted to. So to worry about how far am I along, et cetera, right now in what you're describing, I don't think is necessary. Specifically, as far as have I had a first awakening or have I had an awakening yet? You can ask yourself, if you just sit quietly, is there a sense of I, or is there a sense of self? Do I think I'm actually going to find a self here? Like a distinct separate self? You're not. Yeah,
I
so
know I'm not going to find it.
you're beyond that then. Okay, good. So
Mm.
yeah, you could there's different things you can do. You can go along like the Fetter's path and like work on reactivity. Maybe you already worked on reactivity. Maybe there isn't reactivity. You can just very gently and through the enjoyment of doing it, work in the visual field with the non-dual. Like I have a whole playlist on non-duality, and it's not seeking, it's just contemplating in a very precise way the nature of vivid sense phenomenon. That's all it is. That can clarify the non-dual aspect, but also that is actually a spontaneous act, because as you mentioned very obviously, it's right there. When I look and see, when I listen and I hear the sound of the birds, it's here, like it's in here. I was just noticing this on my back porch. The birds were coming by and the dog was noticing the birds. They're like geese. And it was so funny because it's just like my body's doing it. My body's making the geese sound, the honking, and the dog and the body and the geese are all like intertwined. That's how it is. And it's enjoyable just to experience that. There's nothing to contemplate. It takes itself deeper. It deepens itself. And it's just the richness of it is its own reward. And you seem like you're already kind of really aligned with that. So that's what I would say for you is that's it. Just keep doing what you're doing and not doing what you're not doing and relaxing into it.
Mm. Can I ask you one more thing? Because one of the things that I have found really helpful is like the appreciation in seeing is in the seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because when I say that to somebody, it seems like nonsense to them, but that seems really clear. So when I see something, it's like it kind of like works as a prayer to see something.
Yeah.
If you a gratitude.
Absolutely.
Gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I'll point out, I'm glad you said this. You'll never be able to explain this to people, most of the people you encounter. And to talk about it it's okay. It's just kind of sometimes useless. And sometimes it's worse than useless because people think you're a little weird. But I will also say the very fact that you even bring that up, it's always good to look a little bit and see, do I still want, why do I need validation for this? Like, do I need anyone to understand this at all? No, because the seeing is the seeing. The seeing is the gratitude. The seeing is everything. It's so beautiful. When you see that, when you see what's actually there, you could stare at that the rest of your life and it's fulfilling because it's everything already. It's that enjoyable. And that's why my sense of you is you're in a very good place with it. Just really enjoy this gift of knowing that there's not a self between this and that. There isn't a this and a that. There's just the scene, and the scene is more than enough,
Thank you.
Sure. I'm sure Viivi will have something to say as well.
Yeah, thank you. It was beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to be. And I definitely would agree that just dropping all the ideas about what awakening is, it's just hugely beneficial because those are like some of the biggest barriers. And like I think it's more useful to orient towards truth, for example, or silence, or whatever it is that kind of calls us, that is like genuinely like interesting and fascinating for us to. So forget about awakening, but just get really curious about the silence, like the non-relative silence, like how it's vibrating as all the sound, and really listen to that and contemplate that and inquire into that and ask that, right? Because it's not something, is what it's your true nature, right? or with the seeing the same. So I think Mukti, who's the wife of Adya, has the beautiful story of her awakening, how she was just inquiring into the stillness, and it was just completely like it absorbed her fully, and it was that inquiry into stillness that was the actual awakening for her. Like, so reading that story could also be inspiring for you.
I read that story. I think it's actually beautiful because she didn't know that she had an awakening, and when somebody greeted her the next day, she found it really funny because she didn't know who the person was greeting. And
Yeah,
I
I
found
think
that
you
so
were saying
beautiful.
that only at that
Yeah.
moment the awareness of the awakening
Yeah.
suddenly kicked in. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's a beautiful story. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to I think Ray is next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Good, man. I like your background.
I'm at work right now. I don't want it to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm really stuck in the mind right now trying to figure out like what's going on with me. But I can't really find anything. It just kind of feels like I'm not doing something right. Like I feel a lot of apathy right now. Like I have an answer for everything and everything doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's pretty much. I don't it like the sense of compassion that I had like a month ago, gone. It's like I don't nothing. But I still care. Like I still care like somehow. I just don't feel that same stuff that was maybe might have been charged with like guilt or something like that. I'm not sure. But I don't really yeah, I don't really know. I guess there's a nervousness too. There's a nervousness too that's kind of clouding yeah.
Viivi, do you have anything?
No, you go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, what you said at the beginning, I can relate to very, very directly. From when I was younger, the feeling of just, yeah, I know the answers. I can kind of play along, but something about me is not right. I thought it was about me. But I knew something wasn't right. I knew something was off. Something was, for me, deeply unsatisfying. Unsatisfying isn't, to put it mildly. So I know it's a really uncomfortable place and a strange place in a way to find yourself, and a hard place. Like it's like the last thing you want to relate to anybody, right? You're going to talk about it here, which is wonderful, but it's, how do you talk to your friends and family about something like that? Because you kind of know, at least I did. I knew they didn't get it. I could almost sense that they were avoiding seeing what I knew, in a way. I could sense that. So I was like, what am I, who am I going to talk to about this, right? And so there's a loneliness to it. There's an aloneness and a kind of helplessness. But at the same time, it's music to my ears, because that is the fuel that makes this process go. It's so uncomfortable to be in it, but it has to be uncomfortable in a way, or else we wouldn't wake up. If we were comfortable with the way humans act, think about themselves, treat each other, then what's the point in waking up? It's too radical of a shift. But when we're really uncomfortable, it starts to actually look pretty enticing to go beyond and see. And what we have to go beyond is our own self-imposed limitation that's completely thought-based. And some of it has to do with intelligence. Like you're a smart guy, you're an intelligent guy, obviously. You have a sharp mind, and that's how I was too. And that can benefit you, but it can also be a big barrier, because we're afraid to let that go. You don't want to let that go, because that's been your protection. But there's something so much more powerful beyond it, is all I can tell you. You just have to find a way to get through that loophole. There's an easy way. It's a letting go, but you have to intuit it, and you have to trust it, that it's just so infinitely beyond you. It's so, the intelligence of it is just beyond the human scope of intelligence. And it's what you want. It's where you want to go. It's where your heart is telling you to go. It's where your instinct is pointing you, and you're going to go there. I already know it's a done deal, but I know it's really uncomfortable right now. So I could tell you a technique, or we could talk about self-inquiry or one-pointed approach, but the technique doesn't matter for you. The orientation to your own truth that's not yours, but goes beyond you, but you have to find it inwardly, and then it goes beyond the limitations of self, of you. That's where you want to go, and that's where you're gonna go.
Yeah, I think you know, I skate and I rock climb, and I find a lot of like lessons, like non-thinking lessons, in doing those two things, because they're pretty extreme, and there's a lot of like dissolving of fear, like every day. And I mean, I kind of know I'm already like doing what I need to do. And I guess I came on here because I'm like kind of scared to talk in front of people. There's like 78 people on here. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. I think I'm always trying to find something that I should do. Even because there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but there's an equal amount of like happiness.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks sometimes, but then, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's just a thought. Like it's just a thought. Like this sucks. It's just a thought versus just experiencing it. And I think that's kind of where I'm stuck. I'm not like going full into the pain, the suffering part.
Yeah. I want to tell you a few things. I want to tell you a few things based on what you just said, because I don't want to forget. So one of them is when you said, I always feel like I have to do something. I know what you mean by that. Here's the beauty. The thing I'm pointing to, everything I said before about going where your intuition takes you, that which is completely beyond you, that's the only thing that you don't have to actually do something for. You have to stop. You have to completely stop at some point, and you'll know what that feels like. So the beauty of this is it's not something you actually do. All of that doing is based on a misconception that you have to try to do something to fix something about yourself, about the world, about life. That's one thing I want to say based on what you just said. The other thing I want to say is with the extreme stuff, rock climbing, all that. It's fascinating to me. Like I've read people who are free climbers and stuff talk about that experience of when you have to stay so focused because it's such a, the risks are very high. You have to focus on everything you do, every place you put your hand and foot, and their mind gets very calm and it becomes like almost addictive. And it's true. And I think it's really cool, but I almost feel sorry for some of the ones that are like, they end up getting themselves killed, because I want to tell them like, it's actually available in non-extreme situations. It is kind of an extreme situation to penetrate identity, but it's available for you without being on the rock wall. It's great to go on to do all that stuff. It's awesome. But those are just tastes. I'm showing you a place that you can walk through a gate and you don't walk back through it. And you have that capacity, and you can do this. And I want to see you do it, for yourself and for everybody around you. It's the ultimate extreme sport.
Right. I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why that's my main, I guess, motivation is really for my family. I mean, yeah, it's for me, but really it's for my family. It's for everyone. It's for my healing our family tree and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're a heart-based guy. That's awesome. And that big heart, it's a huge benefit in the whole scope of the awakening process. It really, really is. Because you can get through the first part of this without that big heart. Like you don't have to be selfless to wake up. You have to be, in a sense, selfish. You have to really stop for a minute and go, wait a minute, why am I making myself suffer, and stop doing it? So that big heart is really beneficial, especially in the grand scope and the long run and so forth. But initially it's really important just to see like, yes, that's true. You do care about your family. I know you do. And I know you care about the greater family. I know you care a lot. At the same time, you have to really look at your own suffering, and that, and you said that. That's where the magic is just diving right into that and going, what is that about? Why? How am I making myself suffer? Like, what is it with these thoughts? What am I taking myself to be? It's all the same question. It's all a matter of identity. But it's structured in thought, actually, initially. So you're in the ballpark, man, for sure. And I love the way you express like just the whole thing, It's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds for you.
Yeah, to me, it's like everything I'm doing now is sort of TRE. Even uploading videos on YouTube is like the scariest thing I did the first time I did it. And it's just kind of, I don't know. Everyone around me tells me, saying that like, oh, you're doing well, you know, all this and that, all these objective stuff. But yeah, like I said, there's something inside, like I'm resisting a lot, and I could feel it, I could tell, but I'm too afraid to let go of that resistance.
Maybe.
But
you could say, I'm too afraid to let go of that resistance. Maybe.
Maybe.
And you're
okay.
not.
Okay.
And you don't have to let go. It's not even a matter of letting go so much. It's a matter of going right into the, just getting so curious about what it is. What is that center, what's that kernel that I might be avoiding? What is the center of that fear? What is actually there? Because we have this fear of looking inward in a certain way. You know, sometimes we could call it shame. There's something that says, don't look here. But why? Right? Maybe we can look there. Maybe we can go directly into it and just get curious, you know, trust that there's nowhere you can't go. There's nowhere you can't explore. If I could use the voice of unconditional love, it would say, show me where the pain is. I want to go right into the center of it right now. That's what it does. That's what it does. It's not afraid of anything, and it will go everywhere it needs to go to illuminate everything. And you have that capacity, you know, and you're feeling your way into it. And that's great.
Cool. Appreciate that.
Sure, man. Appreciate you. Viivi might have some stuff to say.
Yeah, thanks for all those reflections. And yeah, it's so fascinating that there is that kind of a voidness in the center of the psychological self and processes. And then when we are getting closer and closer into it, the resistance kind of grows, and we notice that, and it feels very weird because for the person, because the person kind of senses that it's about to enter into that place where it's not going to exist anymore. Yeah, it's like a natural process, and there is the inner pull to enter there, but it is a journey, and it's so unique for everyone how it happens. Yeah, that which is pulling you in there is what you actually are. So that voidness, that clarity is actually what you are. And so just felt to tell you that, and I'm sure you already like know that, but to get that experientially, that recognition, it's very fulfilling. And yeah, because the psychological self never really feels fulfilling, even if it's very healthy and there is some amount of happiness in the life, it kind of always feels that something is not quite right, having that as the center of the experience, because it's such a artificial construct. So when we arrive that which is the real center, which is kind of like everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, it's such a deep letting go, and it's it's what we are longing for, all of us. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I think you're right. I think I have experienced I really lean towards weird things. I don't know how else to say it, just weird stuff. And things that people don't like, things that people don't do. And that's where like my curiosity is, and it always brings me somewhere where I like find real happiness.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Thanks.